we talk about, going digital, new media, new age media. Cricket has actually managed to, the majority income, they've come to this because of the media rights, they are, and that was media rights of something which did not exist. IPL is just something out of nothing in that sense. Yeah, it's not 10,000 crores or whatever. So to create something out of nothing and make so much money from new age phenomena, of course, you mentioned about cricket is, I think, the only game in the world which has got so many formats. And that's why the appeal, from 5 day, 50 overs, 20, now they will have 10 as well. Then we're going to have gully cricket also, that is starting now. So that, those kind of extensions are, very interesting. But one thing which also struck me is that, there are people who build the railroads and there are people who build services on top of that and make more money. For a time, I thought that all these cricket apps will make more money than that. Of course, because of GST, they have now been waylaid. But at one point, they were making serious money. And the railroad was, done by someone else. But these guys were riding on top and making more. So there are a lot of these lessons you learn that, you need not be the infrastructure layer. You can be something on top and yet make some serious money.
So one of the interesting things I was thinking of when you look at, the brand and cricket as a team, each team is creating certain things that define the identity. So Chennai has that yellow color and that whistle powder. Mumbai has got a blue and Mumbai Meri Jaan. So all brands also have to do that. You have to create things that are very easy for the customer to identify you with, build an affinity with. So these are iconic properties. So maybe even if people move, but the properties remain, the brands will continue to, just thinking about your question, what will happen to Chennai without Dhoni? Maybe these properties which are intrinsic to the brand stay there. The brand will continue to build on that and, it's got something to do. It's got something to work with at least.
But from a corporate scenario, do you think how much time how would you define a brand building process? Typically, how many years would you build a brand? It's a very indefinite timeline, right?
There's no particular timeline for the brands get built overnight nowadays.
Actually, there's a lot of factors, right? I mean, it depends on your product. It obviously depends on the distribution, how much they have actually supported you. So it's not necessarily about spending huge monies on advertisement and building up a brand quickly. I've seen cases in my career where you managed to create a 300 crore brand within less than 5 years, right? Just because the product was great, the channel believed in it, and they made they got that belief transferred onto the electricians, and it picked up. It picked up like fire.
So again, going back to the point that you made, and perhaps on yours as well, nowadays there's a lot of comparison between how long it has taken Netflix to get its first 300 million users compared to, let's say, Google or someone else, right? A Google or companies that came before. So I think brands, in terms of users, how many people have affinity for you, and they show that affinity by paying for your service or your product. So I think, like you said, people who are building brands on top of the railroad, they are perhaps building the brands faster. Because in the digital age, user familiarity with the product and the service, affinity to the brand, the power of influencers to drive all this, right? And one of the, to me, the best things about this is that now scale and spend is not so important to build a brand. If you are a small local or even a hyper-local brand that is providing a relevant service, a relevant product, and you're riding on the existing infrastructure, you can build a brand very quickly in a local area. To me, that again from cricket, if you talked about gully cricket and different formats.
What surprises me with cricket is that, as you mentioned, that brand has the longest longevity in the sports, economy of India. So no other sport has ever been able to come close to cricket as a religion or as a brand. We have tried with football, kabaddi. There have been iconic sportsmen from which have been rewarded. Prakash Padukone said badminton, and again recently Saina Nehwal, and say from PT Usha, I remember, Sunil Chetri and all that, but somewhere no other sport has enjoyed the brand or of what cricket has happened in the last 50 years.
I think that's such an important point because personally to me, I see perhaps a lot of Indians who play badminton, who play football, very popular sports, but they have not been able to ride the media waves as cricket has. So to me, the success of cricket really has been to exploit what was there in terms of television. So why has football become so popular in Europe and now in America it is becoming, right? Why is basketball so big in the US? So basketball was dying till the NBA got in Michael Jordan, who was in turn sponsored by Nike, right? And that fueled the entire basketball phenomena. And now there are multiple icons who come. So I think this issue of if Michael Jordan retires, who's going to be the next Michael Jordan, was answered because there are others who came and took his place because they were hungry for it. And I see the same thing happening in India. So I think the difference has been, how do you use the media? How do you use the existing or the next technology? And what is your next idea? I think that is what a business also needs to make very relevant. So I see a lot of companies, and I'm sure all the companies here, right, are saying, how do we go digital? How do I make sure I don't miss out? It may be a small proportion of the business at this point in time. It may be only 4% of my sales, right? But how do you make sure you're there, right? What's next?
So if I may just take up on your point about why cricket is so successful and why has it grabbed attention. One is, of course, accessibility, media, all of that. But it's also because cricket has been successful and is a sport where we have, as Indians, performed very well.
Correct.
As compared to, say, football or hockey. Correct. Right? So that's why people identify it. So brands which are winners in any category that you take, you'll have your top 3 brands which have maybe 60% of the market, and then there'll be 30 brands fighting for the balance part of it. Right. So cricket has produced winners from 83 World Cup, then World Championship of Cricket, XYZ. You've seen us, we are always there in that 1, 2, 3 phase, not in the last 11 years, but otherwise, you've always been there.
Right.
So and I think that drives affinity. You want to be with the winning brands. You don't want to be identified with the sport where you're 170th in the world or 127th in the world. So I think that's a very important thing for brands. You've got to be in that 1, 2, 3 category if you have to retain affinity and, continue to grow and win.
Yeah. So one thing which Niraj mentioned, I really like that, the delivery of cricket has really moved to small screens. From stadium, I remember, we used to queue for tickets, in the stadiums to, and stay there for 9 hours in the sun just to see a test match. And now, now it's been in the lap of your lap in terms of a small screen mobile. You can see people, seeing cricket while they're traveling in local trains, while they're sitting in restaurants and things like that. So I think that engagement and that the euphoria which was built as part of the delivery mechanism, I think that is something that's very important.
So using this word delivery, I'll tell you how the expectations are changing, right? So our products, typically when a building is getting constructed, right? In the past, you would you will basically dump all the material that they want, whether it's wires and switches and lighting, you'll just dump it at one shot. And then came a stage where the builder said, now you start delivering it, to me wing-wise, right? As I finish one wing, then they came on to the floor-wise. Now they're saying that every floor when we complete, we will let you know the schedule and you deliver it there. Now believe it, the expectation now is that every flat, we're supposed to create a separate package and then deliver it for each flat marked with the flat number, right? So the consumer expectation, obviously, it's increasing, and they expect the delivery as per their convenience,
Yeah. So I think this whole reinvention of business model and the driving the engagement, I think cricket has a solid business case around it. How cricket has done it. So from 5-day to big bash 10-10. And how, corporates can move from their iconic products to building that whole ecosystem.